strength in Vietnam and the American military's difficulty in dealing with it.
We've been following a strategy that just doesn't work.
It's 1969, and the conflict continues in the Vietnam jungle. As the casualties mount, so does the pressure to end the war.
We have protested the use of the university to support the war in Vietnam by again discovering military means to resolve social and political problems.
Richard Milhouse Nixon has been elected the 37th President of the United States.
There's a new president in charge, voted in on a promise to end America's involvement in Vietnam.
I pledged to end this war, and I expect the American people to hold me accountable.
But he knows that pulling out of Vietnam immediately would look like a defeat. So Nixon continues the conflict, hoping for a breakthrough. And while liberals are turning against the war, many blue-collar Americans are still backing the president.
I was born in Brooklyn in 1946. My dad was an infantryman in World War II. He was a veteran of World War II. And we kind of grew up with that, the whole idea of service and service to your country and how grateful you should be that you're an American citizen and that, you know, and that there was an obligation associated with that. I didn't really understand the anti-war movement. And for people like me and the neighborhood I grew up in, we were blue-collar, lower-middle-class kids, and all the guys that I grew up with were being drafted and going to serve in Vietnam. Then you saw these kids who were going to universities almost mocking the service of the kids that I knew. That was when I decided I should really join the Army. I should go to Vietnam. And one day on my way home from work, I literally drove to the Army recruiting station and I said, I'm a nurse and I want to go to Vietnam. Well, needless to say, they couldn't move fast enough to get the paperwork going. The next thing you know, I was being sworn in as a second lieutenant in the Army Nurse Corps. When I got to Vietnam, I had no clue what to expect. They assigned me to take care of my first patient. I just couldn't believe. I couldn't believe the condition that this patient was in. And he had been in a bunker that was collapsed on him. So he had a crushing injury of the chest. He had spinal cord injury. Had other patients, people with amputations, head injuries, gunshot wounds. I was just totally overwhelmed. And I mean, I have to say, it was almost like what you really wanted to do was turn around and run away. But at the same time, you know, I think I was very naive. I was very idealistic. I knew that I wanted to be there. I believed that what we were doing was right. But I had no idea what the situation is like in the field.
Casualty figures released by the U.S. command today show 308 more Americans have died in combat, almost double the figure in the last weekly list.
With Nixon promising to end the war, many soldiers on the ground see little purpose in continuing to fight.
We don't really get involved. We just sit back. We never use a gun or anything, so killing for peace just doesn't make sense.
Before, we had this whole idea of war. It was going to be fun. Oh, it was, I should say it was very honorable. But when I got to Vietnam, military was basically falling apart. There was a resistance to the war in the ranks.
94在跑什么戏
I don't want to shoot these people.
We really didn't know what we were fighting. And they come, they knew the terrain, they had a cause, but we didn't know what we were doing.
With no clear military goals,
可以走快的咩
break down.
不是鸡掰只可以走60而已
Somebody give me some illumination. There it is, man. You owe it to yourself.
真的有点不对耶真的那个脑
This stuff smells pretty strong.
It is. It's really nice stuff over here.
How often do you come down here?
I make it down here maybe twice a day. Sometimes in the morning I'll come down here. Sometimes in the afternoon. Then we really get it on in the evening. That's my little place.
I was just doing all kinds of stuff. I was just smoking weed, taking drugs. Oh yeah, I was on acid.
Individuals and small units are, at times, incapacitated and unable to fight.
It was just chaos. And I was doing whatever I wanted before I was going to possibly be sacrificed.
Jeff Hires, a high school dropout from New Jersey, is an infantryman in another platoon.
My unit was like the Northern Fly. We were 18, 19 years old, and they didn't have a replacement for our last platoon commander who rotated back. So we were leaderless. We loved being leaderless. But then after a while, a new lieutenant was assigned. I just turned 25, but had about 8 months Marine Corps officer training. I'm going through the file of the people in my platoon, and just one after another, it's unemployed, high school dropout. It was like a catalog of the people who had been left out of America. They flew me out in a helicopter to my unit. This is blasted hilltop. There's fires that are burning. It looks like one of those hobo encampments. I was this brand new guy in a brand new clean uniform, with a clean rifle and a clean everything. And they were in rags. One day, I can vividly remember out of the corner of my eye, I was a freshly minted lieutenant. We had zero respect for officers in general. I refused to salute him. The message was, this isn't your Marine Corps. We don't need you. I said, Detroit. We wanted to make sure that he wasn't in charge because he didn't know enough about Vietnam to be in charge.
Lieutenant Broyle's mission is to lead his men on dangerous jungle sweeps in the area surrounding a U.S. military base.
We were on patrol one day, and I got this feeling, it's hard to describe, but I could feel somebody there. Suddenly, all hell broke loose. So scared. My mouth went so dry I couldn't talk. I'm trying to give orders, but it was He couldn't handle it. What do we do? What's going on? And I thought, oh my God. He doesn't have anywhere near the experience that we have. And so hires my 19-year-old radio man, does everything. He gets evacuations, he does the whole thing. And I'm going, I'm terrified. I am too terrified to speak. We were not going to allow him to put us in harm's way.
As tension in the ranks builds up, a troubling new phenomenon is emerging. Men are starting to turn on their own officers.
One officer has been killed, another wounded at this base, and there have been dozens of similar incidents all across South Vietnam. The violent attacks on authority have come to be known as fragging.
I've seen more than one big group meeting where actually all they talk about is fragging, as we call them, pigs. There's quite a few getting fragged and blown away with, M16s. There's a first sergeant on the A troop, Days Lake bomb on kind of.
It's not an accident.
No, there's nothing for him because he was kind of rough to the men.
I was worried.
Like a T-boy, so you don't want to look at you.
An incompetent, excessively gun-ho officer could get fragged, could get a grenade rolled into his foxhole. Bill was on thin ice. If you wanted to follow our rules, it would be okay. If he was planning to control the platoon, his life would be in jeopardy. And that's when I had to take him aside and say, you keep this up, they're going to come for you. You're going to be fragged.
Institutions of adult society.
It's great to see you all here today, and we have the power to end this war.
The rejection of U.S. foreign policy is spreading across America.
wasn't right. A lot of the battles in Vietnam War, they would take hills. Multiple helicopters would land to offload casualties. We would patch them up, and they'd be sent back out to the field. And a couple of weeks later, it was like the same exact unit and the same exact hill. But then when they'd come back in with a much more serious injury. I remember one time asking one of the soldiers, said, "Oh, you guys took them?" And I said, "Yeah, we did, and then we left." It was like, this doesn't make any sense. Saving lives, and we were taking care of people, and it wasn't just Americans, it was Vietnamese, we had so many kids. So the actual work was purposeful. The basis for it is what we began to really question.
Disillusioned with the flow of casualties, Joan and her colleagues decide to bend the rules to get the soldiers out of harm's way.
If a patient had a really serious injury, they would automatically be evacuated. And we filled out the evacuation request. So we wanted to get everybody out of the country if at all possible. We would determine someone should go when the injury probably didn't meet the criteria, because we just wanted to try to get them out of the country.
All of those wounded who can be moved are being flown back for treatment.
I thought, oh man, am I going to get in trouble for this? They're probably going to court-martial me. I want to be thrown out of the army. But we had to stop. What I felt was just like this needless, useless death. That really was the first time that I started feeling that maybe we really didn't belong here.
And I've listened to them.
You know, when I was back in the States, we went to the speech place. You know, that's what I specialize in speeches. And we get a speech. That's good. Can you imagine a good stomach, a good 48-inch speech? That's wonderful.
And they were waiting to go. platoon said, we're not going. Too dangerous to go out there. And it's night. We don't own the night. The economy own the night. I'm trying to give orders. And Jeff said, you're not going to do that. It's a suicide. And so that was, what did I do? And Hire said, we can do that on the radio. And I never knew. I told the lieutenant, by using the radio, we could simulate that we were trying to prevent the attack from going on. I thought for a second, like, I'm a lieutenant. I could probably get court-martialed for this. But I could tell these guys, they would die for each other. They weren't going to die for me. That wasn't worth their sacrifice. And all those things about fighting for freedom, fighting for democracy, that was gone. And that was my moment, right there, when I realized what I was there for. I was there to be responsible for these kids. And I said, okay, let's do it. We all got on the radios, and I was saying, Bravo 1, where's your position? We're crossing the blue line. We weren't out there. We were just passing the radio back and forth.
From that day on, I was one of the platoon.
From that moment, he had proved himself. He had the respect of all of us. He got it.
They were 100% behind me because they said, oh, okay, this guy knows what our purpose out here is. Our purpose is to stay alive. I fulfilled my mission. I kept them alive. I did.
All we do in attempting to keep the lid on it, we're going to blow right out.
With his ground troops locked in a perpetual state